The Photoshop banner for those of you that missed out on that lesson. So click on the Launchpad. You want to open up Photoshop, which is PS. If you can't see it, again, just click and swipe to the left and open up PS, which is Photoshop. This takes a little while to load because it is quite memory hungry, and I've got a few other applications open like Dreamweaver at the moment. So what we're going to learn how to do is essentially create the banner, add in a background, bevel some edges, and add some effects and text over it. Now what you've got to understand with Photoshop is that it does work in layers. So every image, every bit of text, anything you add on top of another image, so say you've got a background and you add some text over the top, it essentially works in layers. So you've got to understand that concept, and we're going to come back to that in a second. So we're going to create a new file, File New. We're going to title this banner, and I'm actually going to make sure it saves into the same folder, website folder that you have already created. You want it to be in pixels because as a designer, a web designer, they all work in pixels. So the width should be 1000, the height should be 150 pixels. Make sure you've got pixels, not centimeters. The resolution, we're not too concerned about that at the moment, but usually for web design it is 75, so it actually loads quite fast for people. So we create OK. Essentially we should have what looks like a big long rectangle. Now I did click transparent background. You might have a white background, don't stress about that. You can see that it automatically has created layer 1, and that is my background. There's nothing on it, I haven't added anything on it, but what we're going to do is add something on it. Okay. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go to my paint bucket, and it is here. If you right click on any of these tools you will get more options. If you can't right click, you need to change your mouse settings within the settings system preferences, and make sure you activate your right click. I'm going to click the paint bucket tool, or I could click the gradient tool, it's up to you. At this stage I have a preset automatically come up, which is blue to green. Now that's only because I've got those two colors selected down here. If I click on that color and change it to, for example, a movie color, and I click OK, and then I've got a green there, I can then click on that color and select that maybe to a blue, maybe a brighter blue. Okay, click OK. And if I click and draw an arrow, oh, that didn't quite work, click and draw an arrow or click on the gradient, I can actually create a gradient effect by clicking with my mouse, and I am using a trackpad so it's a little bit difficult. So you can see it's a gradient, it goes from one color and fades to the next. If I want to actually create an effect on that, I can add any of these filters. Okay, you can play around with some of these filters. You can go distort, and you can click shear or ripple or whatever you want. It's a matter of playing. What we did as a class, we clicked filter render and we went clouds. Okay, essentially that gives you a bit of a sort of smoky effect, and that's quite cool. You can actually click on the FX button down here and also add in a bevel and emboss, which gives you a nice border. If you move your menu across, you can see that there's a slight light shaded bevel on that. And it's a matter of sort of playing with the parameters. So you can have a bit of a play. You can see that that changes to a darker shadow in the depth. You can see that if I actually adjust the size of it, it can become bigger or smaller. Kind of liked what I had before without being too much. You can soften it so it's not such a hard edge. And so it's a matter of just playing with these parameters, opacity, etc. Click OK. I'm happy with that. I've got a bit of a beveled edge. It creates a bit more of a formal look. And essentially what I've done is I've done both the background and the beveled edge on layer 1. And you can see that effects and a bevel and emboss. Okay, what I'm going to do now is add text. So if I click on T for text and I just click on the space, it's going to add in a text box and hopefully it will add another layer. It's just thinking right now. Okay, you can see that it has created a cursor where my text is going to go and a new layer is created. Up here you can change your text parameters. I'm going to make my text a little bit bigger and I'm going to call this one Cyclones. And you can see that text is not really the right size or even really making an impact with the color of it. So I'm going to make it white. So you can see it. I don't really like that font, so I'm going to play around with the font. Something strong for Cyclones. Okay, and I'm going to make that much bigger. Keep going. Okay, now if I want to move that, it's not quite in the right place. So I don't have to actually select it, but I just go to the Move tool, which is up here, and I just simply drag and move that and center it. Okay, so with that, I kind of need to add more graphics and images. So if I want to go to Safari and I want to click on clouds or something related to weather, I'm going to find some images of clouds, and I wouldn't mind putting in some sort of clouds, some sort of graphic that looks almost cyclonic. So I'm going to right click, save image as. Okay, I'm going to save it all to my website folder. So it's going to be called clouds. Again, labeling is so important in the creative arts. We're going to go back to Photoshop and I'm going to open this image. Now remember, we're not in Word and we're not in PowerPoint. We don't insert. We're in an image building program. So we're going to open the clouds. And I'm going to Documents, 7com, Website. I know exactly where I put it. That's why it's really important that everything's in the one spot. Okay, now I'm just going to take that whole graphic and I'm going to select it all and paste it onto this banner here. So I'm going to go Command A, which is select all, Command C, which is copy, go back to your banner, and I'm going to go Command V. Now what's happened, it's pasted it on the middle, but I'm still on my selection tool, which is the pointer tool. It's created a new layer and I'm going to put it there, but I think it's probably a little bit big. So to change the size of it, a shortcut is Command T for transform. And if I want to keep the width the same as the length, so preserve the native dimensions of the image, I click Shift, hold the Shift key down, click, and then move my arrow. Now you can see it's not actually distorting, like, you know, when you sometimes resize an image in Word and it starts to stretch and look a bit really bad, and in design that's no. So I'm actually using my up and down arrows just to get that perfect within that space to get that in the right spot. So double click to set that image, and essentially I probably would put another image over on the left here. I might even create maybe a lens flare. I know a lot of you like lens flares. So it's a matter of adding in a lens flare. So you can go filter, I'm not sure if it's in lens correction. No, it's not. So filter, it's in one of these. Render, lens flare. Okay, so you can actually add in a lens flare. Now essentially that's on layer 2. We don't really want to add it on layer 2, we want to add it on layer 1. So filter, render, lens flare, or you can add in some lighting effects, would be great too. You can adjust the brightness of that, and you can see it starts to move, and you can move that across. Okay, so click OK. So you can add a bit of bling or a bit of wow factor by adding a lens flare to your banner. We need to save that, so File Save As, and we save it as a Photoshop file. Again, you need to know where it's going. If it's not saying the website folder, click on this little down arrow, and you have options as to where you save it, but make sure you always know where you're saving. Okay, so it's going to that website folder. I'm going to call this, it's already called Banner. Click Save. Okay, click OK. Don't ever click Cancel to anything. And if I want to insert it into Dreamweaver, I need to save it as a PNG. So File, Save As again. And this time we're going to change the format to a PNG. So we keep scrolling down to find PNG. And again, it goes into the website folder. Don't ever get rid of these extensions, because we always have issues with students just selecting the whole name and typing over it. Always preserve the .png, .psd, whatever it may be. That's called a file extension. It tells the computer which program the file needs to open in. So don't muck around with that. So now that's saved. If I now look at my files and go to my website folder, so 7com website, you can see that in this folder I've got several files. I've got my index file, which is my Dreamweaver file. I've got my Stop Cyberbullying, which is my second page. What is cyberbullying, which is my second page. I've got my graphics, which is Stop Cyberbullying, and my banner. Okay, I've got the PSD version in case I want to change anything and muck around with it. And I've got the PNG version, which is the flattened version. Okay, it's much lower in quality, in size, and it's quicker to load as a web, within a web page. And I've got my banner. So everything's all in the one spot. That's so super important, and make sure you do that. Okay. Another thing to note is that when you're opening your Dreamweaver page next time you go to open it, don't just double click on it, because it's going to open in Safari. Okay, you can see that it's opened in Safari. It's just going to bring up the preview only. What you need to do is click on the page that you want to open, go right click, open with, and open it with Adobe Dreamweaver. That's so important. And it'll open up with the actual program itself, not just a preview in Safari. Okay, this is Mrs. Arnold signing out.